Welcome to episode 1 of the Party Wagon podcast, where we talk about all things Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the past, present, and future. I am Brendan from the YouTube channel Brendan's Rambles.
And I'm Eric from the channel No You Grow Up. All right, Brendan, so why don't you go ahead and tell us how we got here?
Well, I guess I started with a YouTube channel about 2.5 years ago. I just wanted to make a channel. It's something I was tossing around in my head for a long time. I just have so much stuff to say about the things I like, nerdy crap I'm into. So I just wanted to say a lot of stuff about, Ninja Turtles more than anything else, probably. I talk about other stuff. Ninja Turtles is kind of my bread and butter. I don't think there's any franchise I can talk about more than Ninja Turtles. So, I started making some videos where I just started telling, some childhood stories connected to toys I had growing up and everything. Collecting action figures kind of became a big thing for me again. And Ninja Turtles has always been a big thing. But ever since I started my YouTube channel, it's kind of been something I've been talking about a lot more, I guess, than I used to. Kind of where I came from. So what about you?
I kind of just got into this recently. So I kind of got back into collecting about 4 years ago. And it's kind of just people like you that got me into this. So I've always watched a ton of YouTube. And when I kind of started getting into action figure collecting and finding out that there was like a subculture for this, I knew eventually I wanted to do this one day. And again, it's people like you, the Artist Shark, people that just make this seem more achievable to me than I ever would have thought possible. And again, I just wanted to talk about things that I love. And one of my favorite things is Turtles. It's kind of Lego is what got me back into collecting, but Turtles is really like what got me back into action figures and stuff like that. The first action figures that I bought when I got back into collecting were the original 4 Playmates Turtles. And then from there, it kind of just snowballed. I started learning about modern figures like NECA and Super 7. And then from there, all my disposable income just started disappearing. So after I started my YouTube channel, things just started going pretty well. And I knew ultimately what I wanted to do one day was start a podcast. So it always kind of just bummed me out that there was no Turtles podcast. Like every few months, I kind of just try to look for something and never really find anything. It just seems like something that should exist. So I knew it wasn't something I could do on my own. So I thought I would reach out to someone who can just talk for over an hour by themselves about Turtles. So that way, even if I brought nothing to the table, they could probably carry the conversation themselves. So I reached out to Brendan, and I mean, it didn't even really take any convincing. I just asked him if he would ever be interested in starting a podcast. And I mean, about as quick as I could send my question, he responded and said he'd be down for it.
I just kind of decided right on the moment, like, yeah, it sounds like something fun. Let's do it. Screw it,
Yeah, and again, like it was kind of one of those things. I put it out there, and I'm like, oh, he's probably not going to want to do this. He's probably like, who's this dude that just wants to start a podcast with me? So again, I was pretty surprised how willing you were to do it, and then it kind of was like, oh shit, this is happening now, so better figure it out.
I already had a pretty full plate, I guess, like doing the videos, and I've been working on I'm making my own video game for years. That's kind of my big, numero uno big project that I've been doing since 2017, 2018, really, like every day doing the the art, the animation. It's gonna be a hand-drawn, 2D action platformer, nice. Over 30 levels, over 15 boss, or about 15 boss characters, but 11 boss fights, and like just a big game. It's a tall order because I figured this is the only thing I'm gonna be able to do with my life professionally, like go big or go home. Like if I get one chance, maybe I might as well make it something I can be proud of. So
yeah, that's awesome. I've been pouring my heart. That's something that, yeah, I really admire that. Like, I mean, to put that much time into something is just insane to me.
I've been pouring my heart and soul into that. I shouldn't have started a YouTube channel when I'm already working on that. I just wanted to, so I got into it. But yeah, then I heard the podcast. I'm like, yeah, it's another thing I can throw into my friggin' creative schedule that's already booked. Right? It sounds great. Honestly, I think this is a great avenue though for just. Because, making the videos, I'm still going to be making videos. I'm not like turning my back on YouTube here or anything. Making the videos takes a lot of time and stuff. And I need to come up with a special topic for that video and all, where it's kind of easier to just bounce off another dude who likes the same thing I like and, speak my mind. So the podcast just sounded like a great idea, honestly. So I figured, why not? It's more stuff, but it's almost probably to potentially have to do less work to make more content. So it's like, it's kind of nicer. It's like it's a nicer environment to make this content, I guess.
So yeah, I kind of had the same exact sentiment. So I definitely, again, this is something that I really, really wanted to do, but I also really love doing YouTube. I don't want to abandon those people that have been very good to me, but I really just wanted something where I could bounce things off of someone else, because much better at it than me. I'm not the best at doing monologues. Like, I feel like I'm much more reactionary.
You've blown up more in like a few months than I have in 2 years. I think you're doing
Yeah,
something.
and again, I
really
feel like
good.
it's all just from that one G.I. Joe video that just kind of put me on the map. So not even anything to do with turtles. But even when I used to watch your videos, I'd just be like, oh, I have something to say there. I have something to say there. And I don't know. I just feel like I wanted to have that with someone else, to where I wouldn't even have to have, like, I pretty much only have to bring 50% to the table, and then the other half is covered. You know what I mean? And I kind of like that if whatever I don't have, I feel like you might have already thought of, and you know what I mean? Like, even going into the things for this video, it's like, I don't have to think of everything, because he's going to say stuff too, and I'm going to be able to react to that. So yeah, I'm just very excited to have a partner in crime, I guess.
Me as well. Same thing. Also, I don't know about you, when I'm doing a video myself, you know, I can like get ready for the video, you know, map it out in my head for like months. And then once I go to record it, I forget half the crap I wanted to say for that video.
Oh yeah.
And I just, for the life of me, can't remember it. If I'm talking to someone else, you're probably going to say something that will remind me of that. I'd be like, oh yeah, that point. So it's like, it's a little better. It's almost like you have like, you know, it's almost like when you're working with somebody else, someone's constantly reminding you to, you know, cover everything you want to cover so you don't forget it. Because that happens so much. Like I record the video, I edit it, I'm uploading it to YouTube. I'm like, oh crap, there was like a whole like 5-minute rant I wanted to do that I forgot about.
Yeah,
like,
I do that all the time. Even when I have a script right in front of me, I'll just completely omit huge bullet points and stuff like that.
It's tough. I mean, making videos is just, again, like my mind is always like filled up with, you know, stuff to work on for the game and stuff that is like, I'm running like multiple projects in my head. It's just like the videos are just like, it's hard to like stay down on top of them. And sometimes I write like a script, like, you know, I did Turtles movie reviews. I actually wrote scripts for those. And even then they kind of came out poor. They're a little easier to listen to than my other ones. Yeah. Just, I usually don't. I usually just wing it, and I should write at least outlines. I should write like an outline so I know what to talk about. But anyway, you know, I guess with no further ado, there's stuff to talk about for Turtles that's been happening recently. You know, later we'll talk about the main topic of the video, but recently there was some pretty big news released for action figures, because, you know, we're both action figure guys, so action figure news is the biggest for us probably.
Yeah.
McFarlane.
Yeah, very, very, very surprised to see this. So I was actually driving back to Michigan for Christmas, and I was just watching some YouTube videos. Can't remember what I was listening to that first brought it up. I'm like, this title can't be real. I know those words, and they don't make sense in that order. And sure enough, they had all of these listings, no photos or anything, but I can't remember if it was from Target or who it was from, but just tons of TMNT McFarlane figures.
Yeah, I only learned about it because you texted me. You're like, you hear about the McFarlane toys? I'm like, he had to have like messed up and wrote the wrong thing or something. Like, I thought like, oh, you're thinking like you meant like Seth Rogen, and like you wrote McFarlane because you're thinking of Seth MacFarlane, like Family Guy. But it's like, no, you're like, no, it's literally McFarlane Toys. Todd McFarlane Toys is like making the toys for the Seth Rogen movie. And
and again, that's exactly where my brain went too. Like, it just didn't make sense. But the more it showed everything, and it makes sense when Playmates sublicenses, I don't know how to say that. Sublicenses their license to more niche companies like NECA and Super 7, who are doing things that aren't really being done in the toy aisle, but McFarlane is right there in the toy aisle. Playmates can make those toys, and they're just choosing not to, and I don't understand why.
I don't know. Especially since, I mean, as you so generously gifted me, up there I have the Last Ronin Playmates figure, which is, again, thank you so much, man.
Yeah,
Thing's awesome. Man.
Glad to do it.
That's like exactly what Playmates should be making. You know, they made the Rise toy line, and that just kind of fizzled out. I think no one really was buying the Rise line.
Yeah.
And the 2012 line, I have to say, like, great cartoon, but the toy line, it was a little lacking. I think it was like,
I didn't think it was too bad when I first got back into collecting, and I was just doing everything TMNT. I was grabbing a lot of those figures, and I don't know, it's one of those things that makes me wish I would have been paying attention at the time, because I felt like that was a pretty decent line.
If you like that line, I'd say go to thrift stores. Those are all being sold at thrift stores now, because like,
I see. I feel like that's like the number one garage sale thing that I see is that line of figures.
Because all those kids are like in high school now or college, so it's like those are all just ending up in like, you know, thrift stores, garage sales. I think the one that I wasn't collecting that line. I was watching Pixel Dan's reviews of them and stuff. The figure that just made me say like, oh, F this line was Attila the Frog, I think. No articulation.
All the frog variants are so different in that one.
But he's just like there's no articulation. He's a static, just like blue plastic frog.
Is he the really fat one?
Yeah, he's the big fat one. He was like the leader, I think, in that one. They has like the tongue Glashor play feature from Motu, kind of like the tongue comes out, but there's no articulation or anything. He's even kind of flat. He's like not even like round because they had to fit him in the it's just like, and like none of the details are really painted very well. He's just a big naked frog. And it's like, come on, Playmates. Like you guys used to be legendary. And like now you're making a giant slug figure that like doesn't move. And you just think back, they did like Toon Michelangelo back in the day, and he had the same tongue feature, but he was also a full action figure. So it just seemed a little inexcusable. And I got like the Michael Bay, Platinum Dunes, I guess. Not Michael Bay didn't direct the movies, but the Out of the Shadows, Bebop and Rocksteady figures from Playmates from, when that movie was new, 2016. And they're cool, but like the paint is just not good. And like, they're just kind of cheap. Their feet are like hollow to save on plastic and stuff. Yeah. And the Last Ronin figure is really what I want from Playmates. Like, it's like the vintage line, but it's like, plus articulation, great deco, great detailing. But then they get the opportunity to do a whole line for Mutant Mayhem, the Seth Rogen movie. And they're like, screw it. McFarlane can do it. I don't get it.
That's what I can't get either, because up to this point, I thought they were just kind of on that downhill spiral. You know what I mean? Like every line did seem to be getting a little worse. And I mean, I got wave 1 of the Rise figures for $5 each on clearance. Like that, they didn't even make it through their second wave, I think, before those figures were all clearanced out. So I mean, I thought it was just kind of going to be getting to the end of what Playmates does. But then they did hit us with that Ronin figure, and that figure is going to be a top 10 figure of the year for me, probably. Like, they still have it, so I don't understand why they can't do it. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. They have the potential. This is a great figure, and I mean, if there's a time for the Turtles to get a shot in the arm, it's now. I feel like it's as popular as ever. There's not an ongoing cartoon, but we're getting this movie that's coming out, the Seth Rogen movie, and it's kind of been radio silence on the other movie, which I mentioned to you before, the one that Scarlett Johansson's boyfriend is writing, her husband or whatever he is. But, I mean, it just seems like they're going to have to be bringing back a cartoon soon, and I just don't understand why Playmates isn't there to capitalize on this. Like, what other brand does Playmates even have? I couldn't even tell you.
Playmates doesn't do, and they used back in the day, they did Toxic Crusaders, they did Earthworm Jim, they did a ton of stuff.
Everything.
Now they don't do anything.
Nothing. And I couldn't even tell you what toy aisle toys are Playmates if they don't have turtles in the aisle. I could not tell you a single thing that comes from Playmates. And I don't understand. Like, this is like the ultimate version of paying someone else to do your homework, but like, I don't understand how you can survive so long as a toy company without making any toys. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know. I mean, all they've been doing for the past like 3 years is what, like, same Ninja Turtle sculpts versus Cobra Kai, same Ninja Turtle sculpts versus Stranger Things. I don't know. We're gonna get Back to the Future maybe someday. Everything from the 80s versus Ninja Turtles, and it's like.
And again, I mean, at most they've added new heads to those figures. I think there might be a little bit of new tooling on those, but but other than that, it's been re-released figures made from worse plastic. And again, I buy all of them, so I know I'm part of the problem. But
they just have a new deco, and I'll give the Stranger Things ones, which isn't actually from the 80s, but it's based in the 80s. I'll give that credit. I think those are mostly new. They did like Mirage style turtles for those ones.
Well, because the Street Fighter ones were definitely looked a little bit different, and so did those. So I think those might be the two newest waves, the Stranger Things and the Street Fighter. Those might be completely new tooling. I'm not 100% sure on those, but I think those are a little bit updated anyway.
I think so. The Street Fighter ones, I have to say, the Street Fighter characters look bad. And the Turtles, the deco was weird. They had that really heavy black like deco on them.
Yeah, it's not really a cell shading. I'm not sure what it's supposed to really be.
I can't tell. The only thing I can think of, because it doesn't look like NECA, the Archie ones. I just got the Archie Slash, by the way, which is so much better than I thought it was going to be. That's figures.
Found him too. Wasn't going to get him, and I'm very glad that I found him, because I would have. We'll talk about that later.
Another talk for another day.
Yeah.
But The only thing I can think is like, which is weird because Street Fighter 4 is so irrelevant now. That's from like 2008, I think it came out. And Street Fighter 5 is gone now. Street Fighter 6 is coming out. So it's like, but in Street Fighter 4, they had that kind of like Sumi brush, that black kind of like brush stroke effect where like you did like the counter moves or whatever. You did those little like, I didn't own Street Fighter 4. I owned 5, but 4 I kind of skipped.
Okay, so it's very stylized to that game then, because I never played that,
Yeah.
so that would make sense to me. Okay.
For example, they put Ryu in Smash Brothers back when 4 was the current one, I think. And they gave him that as like his down B attack in Smash Brothers. He does the little weird thing with the black brush ink. That's the only thing I can think of. But by the time these Turtles came out, like Street Fighter 5 was already on its way out. We already knew Street Fighter 6 was coming out. So it would be weird to do a call out to Street Fighter 4, especially if that kind of deco is not on the actual Street Fighter characters in the wave. It's only on the Turtles. So it really just looks like the Turtles got thrown into like a bottle of ink and they climbed out. And that's what they look like now. It's just, I don't know. Playmates has got to actually start making some figures. I guess they don't. I guess just they make enough money off of the license being given to other companies that they
just either let other people do the work and just put your feet up, and I guess just sit back and take your money.
Yeah, Playmates like, all right, NECA's going to make us some money this year, boys. Like, just sit back, relax. They're making every figure anyone ever wanted from Ninja Turtles, so we don't have to do shit. We'll just get royalties.
Right.
Yeah, so the McFarlane figures, though, I looked up the list of what was leaked, like the list of the figures. And there's some interesting stuff on there. So there's Rocksteady is listed. Mm-hmm. So Rocksteady's gonna be in the movie. The weird thing is though, there's no Bebop listed. I don't know if that means that, you know, we just haven't seen all the figures listed, but I can't imagine you'd put Rocksteady in a Turtles property and not put Bebop in as well. Like they're such an iconic duo. You can't have one without the other. It's like Beavis with no Butthead. It's like Bill with no Ted. It's like you need Bebop and Rocksteady together. So they have Leatherhead listed on there, though.
Yeah, he was kind of a standout to me because that made me feel like they are going to really focus on the bad guys, which also I know is coming, like not getting too deep into where these movies are going. But I know there's also supposed to be some follow-up movies that do focus on the bad guys as well. So
yeah, straight to streaming. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very weird, though, that I didn't notice that there was no Bebop with the Rocksteady. That's very, very strange.
Yeah, I almost wonder because see, Leatherhead's such an odd character because you can go evil Cajun Leatherhead like he was, you know, back in the day, or not back at first he was, you know, Mirage Leatherhead, where he's just, you know, big alligator man. Who's a good guy or a neutral one or anti-hero. You can go anywhere with Leatherhead, really. Like he can be an anti-hero, he can be a hero, he can be a villain, and like even like, you know, when he's Cajun mode in the Archie comics, he's not like he's like, you know, part of the Mutanimals and stuff. So you can kind of do anything with Leatherhead. So I don't know if he's going to be a villain in this movie or if he's going to be, you know, just a friend of the Turtles or just an anonymous background mutant with one scene or something. But I'm assuming they're going to go villain since they have these villain movies planned, which would be cool to watch a Leatherhead movie. That'd be surreal.
Right. But I feel like if he's in though, I mean, I don't know why they would bring in a character like that to not have a spotlight. You know what I mean? Like just because again, he was the one that just really stood out to me as well. Because I always expect like if you're gonna do something with Turtles, all the usual suspects are gonna be there. But he was the one character that really stood out to me on that list as well.
He did, because also, I mean, we've seen Bebop and Rocksteady in a movie before now. Like 10 years ago, I would have been like, what the hell, Bebop and Rocksteady? But we've seen that now. We've seen all those characters.
Yeah.
But we've never seen something as niche as Leatherhead showing up. We've never seen like Leatherhead or Rat King or Metalhead or anything in a movie. So seeing Leatherhead on there really stood out. My worry is they might be ditching Bebop for Leatherhead. I wonder if it'll be Rocksteady and Leatherhead are like a duo. Because maybe they thought Bebop and Rocksteady were too similar personality-wise. They want, like, variety between the villains. But I hope not. I hope that, because Bebop and Rocksteady, you know, their bromance is, like, mandatory.
That's what I'm saying.
You can't have them without, like, they're best buds. Like, you can't have them. But, yeah, I don't know. And I am a little worried, just to get a little off topic for a second, a little worried about these villain movies, though, too, because it's like, are they just going to be about the villains from their perspective? Or is it going to be like the Turtles have to deal with a different villain in each movie?
And
Because are they
again,
going to go like the Black Adam kind of route that everyone does now, where it's like, oh, we say it's a villain, but he's actually just a hero who's kind of a jerk, and like, they've been doing that a lot, Hollywood, with like Venom and stuff. Or Venom, he's been heroic before, but like Venom and Morbius and Black Adam and all this stuff, where like they kind of make them like they're kind of mean at one point, but they're really just good guys and they're just heroes. And we call it like a villain movie, but it's not really. So I'm a little worried about that.
I understand that all bad guys think they're the good guy of their own story type of thing. You know what I mean? But I feel like Hollywood really just is on this mission to just, I don't know, put all these villains in the forefront too, to make them seem like good guys. And I don't know why, because again, like you said, Venom was like an anti-hero type character. Like that is kind of what his shtick was after he got really popular and people just wanted to see more of him. But again, with the Turtles, I feel like it just might be a cash grab just to get more content, and that is also just what worries me. Go ahead.
It's kind of the equivalent of a new animated series. It's just really long episodes and a few of them. So it's kind of how I see it. Hollywood tried to make Cruella de Vil, a freaking puppy murderer, like a good guy. So it's
that's probably the best example of it right there. Exactly. It's like, why do you have to try to make everybody, like, again, is it relatable, humanized? Like, I don't know what they're trying to do, but like exactly what you said, she skins puppies. Like, where is the silver lining in that? Like, that's horrible.
Yeah, that's like irredeemable. I mean, we're both dog lovers, so like irredeemable immediately. But I think any human being with half a soul would be like, oh, hell no, if they heard that someone did that. So I don't know. So I don't know where they're going with this exactly. I also hope this movie doesn't become the setup trope, kind of like, Universal's Dark Universe or something, where it's like all the movie is setting up characters who are going to get their own movies on Paramount Plus or something. Like, here's a second of Leatherhead. Now get hyped for the Leatherhead movie in 2 years. And it's like,
and again, like just with him making an appearance, like I feel like there has to be some reason for Leatherhead, you know what I mean? Unless Seth Rogen that's like his favorite character and he's like, I'm working this guy in, like, just the end.
Maybe. I mean, the movie's called Mutant Mayhem. And the synopsis says they're going to fight like some of the craziest mutants they've ever faced. So I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of mutants in this movie.
Yeah. So again, I mean, it could get back to that trope. And I mean, now we're starting to turn this into something about the movie instead of the figures. But this is probably where this podcast is going to go frequently. It's just all over the place.
Yeah.
I feel like another route they could go is having everybody have to have this like universal team up to save like the Earth or their realm or something, where the good guys have to team up with the bad guys type of situation to fight a greater evil of these supposed new mutants. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really, for the movie, I really don't know what to expect. They're still so secretive about it.
Yeah.
I have to say, the one thing, the only bit of actual commentary I can give on like physical content we've seen for the movie is the logo. There's something about, I don't know if it's just because, I'm an artist, but it pisses me off. There's so they have like, to make it look like it's 3D, they have like, the underside of the letters that's like yellow underneath them, with the little popping out. On the S at the end, there's a whole part you wouldn't see. It's sticking off. You can see it, but you to give that 3D effect, you wouldn't see that part. It's like sticking the wrong way. And it just drives me nuts when I look at it. I'm like, get rid of that.
That's
part.
Definitely attention to detail that I don't have. So.
But it's a weird art style. It looks like a kid's like notebook doodle kind of. I don't know if they made it look wrong on purpose because it's supposed to look like a teenager doodled it or something. Because a teenager would do that. They would draw the wrong part just to make it look 3D. I'm just hoping they don't do that thing in the movie where like, they do it all the time now. Everyone's trying to be Spider-Verse, where there's like little doodles appearing around people's heads and stuff, and like Suicide Squad did that, and Harley Quinn's Birds of Prey did. They just write little stuff on the screen. There's little graphics, and just be quirky. Mitchell's versus the Machines did that, and it's like I just feel like that was quirky at first, but everyone's just trying to be Scott Pilgrim now, I guess. And it's like we've seen that before. Like we don't need that in Turtles, but
and that's where I see like kind of the art style of this movie going. I know that's kind of what people have been comparing it to, like you said, is just that Into the Spider-Verse style, where I mean, I don't know, again, I don't know about art and production, if it's like stop motion or if it's just slow or frame rate animation or what it is, like, but it looks like that's the style that we're going to be getting, that kind of CGI choppier movement.
It's sort of like it's like a marriage of like hand-drawn animation and like CG. It's kind of like the movie Klaus on Netflix. The Santa one did that, and a little short from Disney years ago, Paperman, did that. I can't tell you exactly how it works. I just do hand-drawn animation. I don't know anything about CG or the marriage of the two of them, so I can't tell you about it, but I think that's what they're going for. I mean, Spider-Verse is beautiful, so I mean, yeah. It's beautiful. I do have to say that watching it in the theaters, by the end of that movie, my head hurt. I'm like, I just too many fucking colors, man. I can't. But no, it's beautiful. So if it looks like that, it's a good sign. But yeah, you get back to the McFarlane thing. It's weird to me because McFarlane's, I don't think they've ever done Turtles figures before.
No, I mean, they never would have been able. This is the first time that I can think of, like I said, where it seems like Playmates is letting a peer make these turtles. Because again, like, I can understand NECA and Super 7. Like, they're not doing toy aisle things. They're making premium products. Like, they're called toys, but they're not really toys. Kids can't play with those things. You know what I mean? So it's weird that they would give it to someone else that is directly next to them in the toy aisle. Like, it's very strange to me that McFarlane, of all people, got that license.
Yeah. And McFarlane, if anything, you can almost credit his company for starting like the premium action figure trend, really, because when the Spawn figures and stuff came out in the 90s, you look at them now and they're not premium at all, but at the time that was like, oh crap, there's like detailing and stuff in here that like they looked like little statues that like had a little bit of articulation, and I think that kind of got the ball rolling for a lot of companies. They were like, oh, we got to meet the standard of McFarlane toys, and because Spawn is like his own baby, but he did like a whole bunch of stuff. He did like Hellraiser figures and Akira, like a lot of anime stuff. I had a Tenchi Muyo one back in the day. But yeah, he it was always known as like the high end ones. He'd give you a stand so you could stand the character up and make it look like art and all this stuff. And McFarlane's this weird kind of in between. They're kind of normal toys. They're kind of high end toys. So I don't know what they're going to do for this line. It's I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but
it's just because in my head, what I'm picturing is like what they're doing with the DC, like those 7-inch scale that are a little bit bigger than most figures.
Yeah.
And again, like I've had a couple of the Batman figures. I have some of the My Hero Academia figures, and I have a Saitama One Punch figure, and the only McFarlane figures I have. And again, they're just not great, you know what I mean? And that's just kind of what worries me. Like I don't, the deco is great on them. That's the one thing that he does do well, I would say, is his figures definitely look pretty, but the way they feel, like the plastic he uses is just kind of weird. I don't really know what it really is. But the other thing he has going for him is he's been able to stay at that $19.99 price point, which in this climate, I mean, $20 7-inch turtle figures, you know what I mean? I'm still interested to see what they might look like.
I mean, I guess the only other like company that's considered like collector figures that stays at that $19.99 price point, I guess, is the Loyal Subjects. Their figures are usually about $20.
But again, they're smaller, so they're using a lot less plastic, so I can see how they can swing it.
They're real tiny, and they use like real gummy plastic for the accessories and stuff and all, and like very minimal paint jobs and stuff. So it's like they're kind of like made to be the collector line. If you can't afford NECA or Super 7 or something, it's like, hey, here's something, good enough. Yeah, I've always felt the way about McFarlane. They're just the articulation's always been bad on McFarlane figures. There's like the functionality is just very limited with McFarlane toys. Great sculpts, great deco, but like not really functional as an action figure. It's really just like kind of a statue that's made out of weak materials. It's kind of like all it really is.
And that's kind of always been his thing. Like you said, that's how that first Spawn figure was. I mean, it was made with aesthetics in mind, and then they put articulation on it. And that's always kind of been his thing. Let's figure out something that looks cool, and then we'll articulate it afterwards.
Exactly, yeah. And it's like when you do that, NECA kind of does that. I get the Toonie Terrors every now and then where they do like the little cartoony versions of like horror movie characters. And like they give them some articulation. It's always like, why? They're designed to be in one specific pose. They give them like 4 points of articulation or something. And it's like, or 2. Some of them only have 2. But it's like they're clearly, everything is molded. So it's supposed to be like one static pose. Yeah. So it's like, if you can move the leg, but the character won't stand there.
Exactly. There's no point for it. It's more of a hey, it's there. We did it. It's not a statue. So
we'll have to wait and see for that. But what we know what's coming is NECA. Oh boy, this past month they revealed a ton of stuff that they're some of it we'd seen already in videos and all. Cartoon stuff, Archie stuff we already knew was coming, but some Mirage stuff we saw in the videos. But man, the Last Ronin figures, all the rest of the turtles for the Last Ronin figures, that Donatello looks so sick with he has like the hat on and everything, like when he's in Japan. I had the opportunity to get the shirtless Ronin in Walmart, as we were talking about once, and I passed because I'm like, you know what, I'd rather get the Playmates one, and then the next day in the mail we got the Playmates one. And but because you can only collect so much stuff, and NECA has like 15 different lines going right now for turtles. And like I didn't think I was going to do Archie, or at least all of them, but then once I got Slash and this figure's so good, I guess I'm doing Archie now. So
and that's why I wasn't even gonna get Slash, because I didn't want the Archie figures. But again, when I saw him, there was no way I wasn't gonna get that figure. Like I knew he looked good, but again, I was just trying to stick to just stay in my lane. But like seeing him in the store, I couldn't turn that figure down. He might be. I haven't opened him yet, but just aesthetically looking at him, I think he might be the best Slash figure.
I'd say his only competitor is Super Sevens that they just put out, which is one of the best figures Super Sevens ever done. He sure stomps the arcade Slash and the Toon series Slash, because those are the little scrawny Slashes that like no one wanted that. So I think this one he's mostly made out of Toon Toka, I believe. I think he's reusing some parts of Toon Toka. But yeah, he's such a big, beefy, awesome figure. Like when I saw him, and it was like, barely over $30. It was like $32 for him or something. I found him at Target, and I'm like, of course I'm going to get him. Like at first I had no plans of getting him. Like I have enough Slash, but it's like, this is too sweet. I have to get this.
Right. And that's the thing. Like there's not a lot of figures I could do that for, but Slash is, I mean, Raph, Casey, probably Slash is my top 3 Turtles figures or characters.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, understandable. I mean, he's always cool. I mean, one of my favorites, I guess, was always Mondo Gecko as a kid, but it's like, he didn't look really like unique enough in Archie. So if they do get around him, I don't know if I'll even bother. He was kind of just like a scrawnier, more cartoony looking version of what he was already in like the toy line and stuff. But yeah, like those little Ronin figures, I'm not planning on getting all of them, but like that Donatello, at least that Donatello, I got to get him. He looks like the Japan Donatello. That's just awesome. So
yeah, and again, I don't know if I'm gonna go in on like all the I don't know, the robot foot soldiers and stuff like that, but
yeah, I'm not.
And again, I just actually got my Last Ronin NECA figures too, so I'm about to open those guys up in my next opening video. But it just, again, I just feel like NECA is just killing those figures. Again, I haven't opened them up, but the details on him look very good. I just feel like this is going to be another very, very big year for NECA. There's just a lot of things on there that kind of got me excited. And the thing that's kind of has me the most interested is in the Toon line figures, the Space Cadet Usagi or the Space Warrior Usagi or whatever, and then the Donatello that's thrown in there as well. Like, and I know you're a Donnie guy, so how do you feel about this random figure getting thrown in? That's, I guess, their first 2 figures that aren't from the animated series. In the animated line.
I mean, we're going to be talking plenty about the 87 animated series in a second, but I don't recall Don ever wearing that spacesuit. I know the, quote unquote space Usagi. I know, like, I'm not as big into the Usagi comics as you are, but I know that's like his descendant. That's not Miyamoto Usagi. Yeah. That's like, so, but he never appeared in the cartoon. Miyamoto, he made a couple appearances in the cartoon, but they never had like a space Usagi episode or anything.
No.
So I almost wonder if was that based on like, was he meant to show up at some point and that's like canceled concept artwork or something they based it on? I have no idea, but
that's why I don't know. And I'm just very interested to see why those figures are going in this line now. Because again, I know they were not in the cartoon. And does this mean they're going to start throwing random figures in there? Are they going to throw concept figures in there? Is this going to be something they're just going to try to feel the waters with? It's just very intriguing to me, those 2 figures.
It makes me wonder, though, seeing that and seeing like the weird variant of Napoleon Bonafrog and stuff, it almost, I hate to say it, but it almost starts to feel like they're reaching the point where they think they're done, that like we have to start getting desperate. And there's still characters they haven't done. They haven't done Murdude. Nobody ever does Murdude anymore, but he was in the cartoon. And he was in Archie also. I mean, you could do Super 7 and NECA could be doing Murdudes right now. But There's other characters that were in, and they're doing a lot of them. They're doing Bugman and Lotus Blossom and all, like Dirk Savage, all these crazy characters you never would have thought there'd be action figures for. But I wonder if maybe they're reaching the point where they think like, we're kind of reaching the end of the line here. So I still want Ray. I know nobody likes Ray. The Ray
and that's the thing. There are those figures. I mean, there's all the gangsters and stuff like that. Yeah. Like, there is a lot they can work with.
What was his name? Don Turtelli or whatever, the guy who like
Don Turtelli. I'm pretty sure there's 2 different Don Turtellis. Actually, I'm pretty sure they use I know there's one gangster character that
he tickles you with the feather
twice for 2 different characters. I know that happens. So again, they do have a plethora of the gangster characters and stuff they can use. Yeah. And again, I feel like eventually they're going to hit the point where they're going to come full circle and kind of do what they did with the Turtles and maybe hit some characters with some new molds. Like, I feel like Shredder would probably be for one of the first ones up to get a new mold. April, we know they've already said she's going to get a new mold. So
April,
I feel like they still, I mean, once they get to the bottom of the order, can pretty much just start from the top again. And I mean, if they look great, I'll probably buy them. You know what I mean? So
honestly, I'd like them to redo Bebop and Rocksteady. I'm not thrilled on the Bebop and Rocksteady because that was so early in the line. They weren't doing big chunky figures yet. They were doing like, the human characters and the turtles, the smaller figures. So I felt like Bebop and Rocksteady, they just don't look as nice or feel as nice as later chunky ones like, Wingnut and Muckman and stuff like that. So I wouldn't mind them being redone at some point. Yeah, I mean, either way, I'm totally down to see what NECA does because NECA has not been disappointing with that Toon line. That Toon line's been awesome. I have my few little complaints here and there, like an accessory breaks or something, but in general, it's undeniably like, just the most impressive toy line that's been coming out. Like Super 7's sculpts and deco and stuff are a lot more elaborate. But as far as just consistency and like how many characters they've been doing and stuff, like it's just amazing that we even, in 2022, we got figures like, I never thought we would ever have, robotic Bebop and Rocksteady from the cartoon and stuff, like just crazy stuff. And that's a good example. They look a lot better than the normal Rocksteady and Bebop, I think. But
they do. And again, like you said, it is just that I feel like they've learned a lot in a very short time. Like the difference between the Turtles molds and, well, I guess those were made way earlier than the line actually came out.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a big step up. And even just looking at their earlier figures to their later figures, like I'm not going to say it's night and day different, but you could pretty much, I feel like, almost chronologically put figures in order just based on their quality. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think you could, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like their plastics have improved, their deco's improved. You still get the flaking and stuff like that when you bend them at first. But I mean,
I got some bad flaking.
NECA is my company of the year this year, hands down, without a doubt. I mean, I think I have very little to complain about with NECA right now.
Yeah, I have very little. Like I said, I got some big flaking on the Slash and the Archie one, but the figure's so good, I don't even care. His knee pads like flaked all over his legs. They scraped off all over his legs. But yeah, it's just an amazing toy. And like you said, you can chronologically look at it. You look at like, even just look at like a Bubble Walker crane versus the crane that came with the Android body, and like the likeness is so much better to the cartoon just in that time. And you look at like Bebop and Rocksteady, look at them, and then look at Ground Chuck and Dirtbag, and like the quality just they learned so much in that time.
And that's about the best example.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's probably the best example with those two duos right there, because I often look at Ground Chuck as kind of the standard of where they're at right now. That figure, his sculpt is great, his deco is great, his joint, everything moved easy on him. Like they're just, everything is improved. There's no weak areas really with NECA right now.
It's not even so much like there's any quality problems, but like with some other lines, sometimes there's like, some of the figures are a bit underwhelming. Like I do the Universal Monster mashup ones with the Turtles, and I didn't even know it was coming out, but the Splinter Van Helsing was just all over Target last time I was there. So I grabbed him, and I have to say that's a pretty underwhelming figure. That's one of my least favorite Turtles figures NECA's ever done. Not because like it's broken or anything. It's just like as a figure, it's so uninspired, I feel. But it's weird. I don't really know what they were going for with it. I guess I'll talk more about it like in my next toy haul video or something. But it's not my favorite. But the Toon series, like we're getting what they're promising and then some. Like it's they haven't been screwing it up at all. So they've all been great.
Again, we'll start wrapping this up here because we're actually about an hour on this intro. So
it's a hell of an intro.
With the Universal Monster mashup figure. So I bought the Raph, And then I decided that's the one that I wasn't going to go down the rabbit hole on, because again, you got to freaking make cuts somewhere. And I'm really thinking I do at least want to get the turtles, because I feel like there is just a huge gap between the human figures, or even Splinter, and the turtles. All the turtle figures look amazing for that line. And then, like you said, like even the Casey, who's one of my favorite characters, he just looks flat. Splinter just kind of looks boring. Like he just looks like Splinter with some clothes on, to where Raph looks like Frankenstein's monster that is Raph. You know what I mean? Like it's a much better mashup than just Splinter wearing Van Helsing clothes.
It's even like weirdly done too, because like, so he's wearing glasses, a hat, and a coat, and that's about it. Like from the hips down, he's just Splinter from the movie.
That's the movie figure, basically, just with some clothes thrown on him.
Yeah, and there's no color like theming throughout the figure. Like he has like the tattered, like cream colored, you know, like beigeish kind of robe hanging out in the bottom, a black belt. Then he has like a grayish blackish hat. He has like a maroon coat with like a purple scarf down here. Then he has bright white cufflinks that imply he's wearing a dress shirt that you don't see anywhere else on him underneath. Like, how many layers is this dude wearing? And then his hands are so weird. So he has like the regular Splinter hands, but they're not hairy, they're smooth. He still has the white claws and everything. But then if you look at him, they're like this weird, like mauve, purple, grayish kind of color. They're not brown. So I guess he's supposed to be wearing gloves, but like, why the hell is he wearing like Easter Bunny colored gloves? And it's like, it doesn't, his claws are still sticking out. So it's like, are the claws on the gloves, or like, it's so weird. Like, I don't get the figure.
Claw holes in his gloves.
Yeah, it's just, it just seemed like they made his hands purple because they thought like, oh, there's not enough unique about this figure. We need to throw some more details in there. And I mean, if you watch the original Dracula from Universal, Van Helsing by Edward Van Sloan, like played by him, he's just a dude in a suit. Like he doesn't, they're basing him on like the Hugh Jackman one or something. Like they're like with the black hat and everything. And even then, he doesn't really look like Hugh Jackman. It's just like, I don't know what this is. It's like Splinter just dressed like a bum, kind of. And they had to write all over the package Van Helsing, because like you wouldn't know who the hell he was.
So it's a sign of a not good Halloween costume if you have to tell people what it is. So
yeah, you look at Mike, and Mike looks fantastic as the mummy. Like he's so good. Either head, they have the head that looks like the old movie prop. That's like the
that's the thing. If I get him, I'm definitely going to use that movie prop head. Like that was just a genius idea.
Yeah, that was. I went with the regular one just because it has a bit more of that Boris Karloff look. I love the Universal monster movies.
Yeah, exactly.
But that head it was hard to choose, because like this movie prop head, it's so funny, it's so perfect. And they did it like, you know, that was a while ago that happened, but it was such a quick reaction, like to like already make that a figure. That was like, it was just impressive that like that quickly they were able to like react with that. So yeah. So, but yeah, NECA, you know, I trust them. I know NECA's figures are going to be good in the coming year. McFarlane, I'm worried about. I'm not worried about. I'm skeptical, I guess. You know.
And again, if I don't like them, I'll just pass. And there's more stuff than I can afford to buy anyway. So.
Well, since we were just talking about NECA doing the 1987 animated series figures, what better way than to segue into talking about the 1987 animated series? Because you know, no one's talked about that online before. So
no, never. This should be very fresh for everybody.
It's a very obscure show. You may have heard of it, called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Wasn't a big hit. But we're here to remind you that it existed and talk about it in excruciating detail. No, the 87 cartoon. That's what I grew up with, you know. I got into the toy line, the Playmates toys, but pretty much immediately I was told it was a cartoon. And because cartoon actually predated the toy line. The toy line came out after the show. And I got into the show pretty fast. You know, as soon as I got that Leo figure, it was just like I was a Turtle fan. And once the cartoon came out, I started watching it all the time. And this was Ninja Turtles to most of us our age. You know, I'm 86, 1980. I'm not actually 86. I'm, you know, I was born in 86. You were born in 87. And for us, for our generation, this was Ninja Turtles as a kid. We didn't know about the Mirage comics and stuff when we were little. At least I didn't.
Right.
Well, most people didn't. We knew there were comics, and people said, "Oh yeah, they started in the comics," but I just thought they meant the Archie comics. Like I didn't know Mirage existed.
That's what I always thought too.
Later. Yeah. So the 87 cartoon, you know, it was Ninja Turtles for most of us. The toys went alongside it, the video games went alongside it. Like we thought this was Turtles. So, you know, a lot of people now look back at it as like, oh yeah, that was the goofy 80s iteration, but there was all these other iterations, and you know, it's the more serious ones. But as a kid, we didn't think of it as that. That was just Ninja Turtles.
No, exactly. And again, for me, I don't know if it was the chicken or the egg. I don't remember which one I actually was into first. If it was the action figures, if I saw the cartoon first. I mean, I can't remember far back enough to even remember when I didn't have the first four Turtles Krang. And so I don't know even how I got those. I just always remember having them because I had to have been around 3 at the time, and that's just about as far back as I can remember. But I love this cartoon. It was my jam. I had a lot of things I was into, but Turtles was definitely just always like my number one. No matter what else I got into, Turtles was always my fallback. I ran my VHSs until they could barely play anymore. Like, I just could not get enough of the Turtles when I was a kid. Like, and again, me and you were born in 86. I was born in 87. We really are that perfect demographic. You hear a lot of the kids, like the Gen X kids, and it was definitely kind of like one of their last franchises, to where us, it was kind of like our first franchise for the most part, I feel like.
Yeah, because like I said, my brother, he was like really into He-Man and stuff before I was born.
Yep.
You know, all my 3 siblings are all older than me. He was really into He-Man. And so when I was born, He-Man was just around me. And like, it was like, oh yeah, of course Brendan's into He-Man because he's going to be into whatever we tell him he's into. Because, you know, we already own all these damn toys. He better play with them also. So it's like, right. You know, when you're that little, you're the youngest sibling. You don't really have a choice. And I liked it. I thought it was cool, you know, cool characters and all, but it wasn't like mine. It was like something that existed before me. And I was kind of just like grandfathered into it. That's not really how that expression works, but whatever. Turtles was the first one, you know, I got the first Turtles figure, like before my brother did or anything. I got Leo for my birthday, and it was like, and my brother's telling me how cool it is, how all the boys in school love this franchise, the new hot thing. And it's like, oh wow, and it's mine. I got it. And it's like, it felt special. So, and it was just cooler. You know, I just always liked like, you know, crazy character designs. Even as a little kid, I liked like crazy dinosaurs and monsters and stuff like that. So the Turtles was like something special. Like there was something different about that figure than like all the ones like, you know, even like crazier ones like Thundercats. They're still very human. The Ninja Turtles were like this whole other thing. So yeah, just instantly got into them. But the cartoon, I mean, the toy line, I was always into it more than the cartoon probably, but that's not to undersell the cartoon. I freaking loved the cartoon. So definitely my favorite childhood cartoon. Like, you know, I loved like the Super Mario Brothers Super Show and stuff, but that can't even compare with Ninja Turtles. Like even my second favorite cartoon does not compare with how much I love Ninja Turtles. So
no, it's the same for me. Cause honestly, the more I think about it, probably the real Ghostbusters might've been the second most, or the cartoon I watched the second most around that time. And I don't have nearly the like just nostalgic appeal for the real Ghostbusters that I do for Turtles. I don't know what it is about Turtles. I don't know if it is just been the longevity that they've always kind of been there, reminding you that they're there even when you're not into them. You know what I mean? Because even when I wasn't as into Turtles as I am now, I've always been into them. The new movies come out, I still watch them and stuff like that. But I mean, back then, everybody was into that cartoon. There was no kids our age other than the kids that just like, you know, played outside and did healthy things as a child and had their imagination and stuff. But any kid that played with toys that was our age had Turtles.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was playing outside with like my siblings and stuff, we were usually pretending to be the turtles and stuff. So it's like usually or like we were acting out like whatever turtle character we just got. If we got, say, like Ray Fillet for the first time, then like we'd act out a game where one of us was Ray Fillet and stuff.
Yeah.
And like it was just always like we were always just celebrating turtles in one way or another. This cartoon was like everything. And I think, you know, it's still definitely the most beloved version of the Turtles. Like just the sales for NECA's Toon line
easily
enough. Oh, like you go into stores now and there's just still so much merchandise for you know, modern for 87 Turtles. It's definitely still huge, but I do think there is this kind of like stigma about it these days that like between some fans, especially younger fans, that it was just kind of this goofy, stupid show that was just just nothing but a toy commercial, and that was it. And it was kind of this little stupid thing that happened in the 80s and 90s, and it's not really worth paying attention to as like a serious Turtles show. It definitely like it was a comedy. It definitely was a comedy, which I think also some people don't get is that it's kind of intentionally cheesy sometimes because, you know, not to go on too much of a side tangent, but the original Mirage comics, Eastman and Laird, they really were just making a parody of superhero comics when they made that. Like they
Daredevil was a straight up parody of Daredevil.
Yeah. Yeah. The foot, the hand. It's like it's just meant to be like them ripping on how ridiculous superhero comics get, yet still take themselves so seriously. So it was like, we got to make the most ridiculous thing ever, yet take it super seriously. That was the joke. Where a lot of people, I think, look back at the Mirage comics and that's lost on them. They just think like, oh, they're really dark and edgy, but it's like, it was still meant for comedy's sake. So I think when they did the cartoon, they're like, let's do a spoof of all these Saturday morning cartoons that are coming out now. Like, you know, all those shows like He-Man and, you know, Thundercats and Silverhawks and Brave Star and all that stuff, that those really like cheesy, I love them, but those really cheesy, wholesome cartoons from like the 80s that were so big. They were like, let's spoof it. The Turtles will point out that they're in a cartoon. They'll break the fourth wall. They'll make fun of the tropes, like when their hero music plays and stuff. They'll mention their theme song, and the villains just are like over the top. Like they say they hate fun and everything. So it's like they were very self-aware. But I think some people watching that now, just like the Mirage comics, the comedy's lost. They might just think the show's really goofy, and they don't get that it's like poking fun at itself and the genre. They might think that like, oh wow, this villain writing is just really bad. I don't think they get that it was meant to be funny. It was meant to be exaggerated.
And that's what I've come to really like about it as an adult. Like I almost like the cartoon as a whole more as an adult than I even did as a kid, because I feel like it is packed with, I mean, I don't even know if it's adult humor, but just stuff that 3, 4, 5-year-old kids aren't going to get, you know what I mean? Like breaking of the fourth wall, like just knowing that they're in a cartoon and calling their own crap and stuff like that. That's what I like. And just, they intentionally put cheesy jokes in there and stuff like that. And again, as the older I get, the more I just appreciate stuff like that. It never really took itself too seriously. And like the big three, like Transformers, He-Man, and G.I. Joe, I mean, they did kind of take themselves a little bit seriously. You know what I mean? Like they really were trying to like get messages across. And I mean, they wanted to take themselves seriously. And especially He-Man comes off very cheesy by today's standards as well. But the Turtles were already poking fun at themselves. So that's why it doesn't really bother me when younger people do kind of point that out, because I can appreciate that. I can understand if you just want your Turtles to be hardcore. But going back to that time, we had the Toon Turtles, but we also had the movie Turtles, which is what scratched that itch for me at the time too. So that's kind of my favorite part about our era of the Turtles is the Toon Turtles were huge, but we also had the movie Turtles. So we kind of had two different streams to grow up with. So I feel like it was kind of the best of both worlds. And I like my cartoon Turtles goofy and pizza loving, and I like my movie Turtles more serious. And I mean, not quite as hardcore as Mirage, but almost the mashup of where the comics and cartoons kind of meet. You know what I mean? Like it's a pretty good amalgamation of everything for the live action for the first movie anyway.
Yeah, I think, I always explain the first movie, I describe it as, not to get too into the movie, we're talking about the show, but I think of it as the perfect balance of the cartoon and the Mirage comics. It's like, it satisfies both fans.
Yeah.
But, you know, getting back to the cartoon, that's something I think is great about it, is that as a little kid, you notice there's funny jokes, Michelangelo, you know, he loves pizza and all that. Yeah. But you're not really laughing at like the sitcom kind of humor between the villains, like, you know, the villains and the Channel 6 news characters. There's some really funny crap written in there. And like, as a kid, you don't pick up on that. Like you're just you're into it. You can enjoy it as a serious action adventure cartoon as a kid, and then enjoy it as a comedy cartoon as an adult.
Exactly.
So it's like, it satisfies all audiences. That might have something to do with why it got so big, is parents were probably, you know, watching it with their kids, and you know, like I love He-Man, but I know it's cheesy. It's like the Leave It to Beaver of Saturday morning.
Yes,
cartoon.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to put that.
I can assume parents were just like, you know, trying to get through He-Man, just be like, oh my God, this freaking show. Like they just weren't enjoying it. Minimal animation, you know, like super cheesy. And for Turtles, I think a lot of the adults probably kind of got into it with their kids and thought it was like, not like they were fans, but they thought it was fun. And they were like, oh yeah, I know that show. That one's pretty funny. I'll buy my kid those toys. I'll buy them those video games because, you know, I like that one. That's a good show. So I think like that kind of helped it in that it had broader appeal than something like He-Man or even, you know, G.I. Joe. It had the action fix G.I. Joe, but then like you had like, you know, your character like Shipwreck, who's like supposed to be funny sometimes, but like it's not like comedy that adults are gonna laugh at. It's like Scooby-Doo cute humor, kind of. So it's like,
which for the record, Shipwreck is my favorite part of that show, and I mean I do laugh at him because his lines are hilarious.
Yeah, he was basically the Michelangelo of their team.
Oh yeah, kind of the Rat too, just always cracking one-liners. But I feel like that is the mark of a good timeless show, though, is one that you can appreciate for one reason as a kid and then for another reason as adult. Like to me, that's why The Simpsons has always resonated with me so well throughout life. I mean, I clearly, like most people my age, I'm not into the newer seasons super a lot or anything like, but it's one of those things where I got jokes as a kid, but as I've gotten older, I'll watch the same episodes and I just keep picking up more jokes that I never got before. And I look at the same episodes in different ways. And as a kid, I could see things, again, not to get on a Simpsons tangent here, but I could see things from Bart's point of view. And now I can kind of see them from Homer's point of view. You know what I mean? So, and again, back to Turtles, it's kind of like that with me. Like you said, as a kid, I didn't think it was cheesy. I thought it was a kick-ass action cartoon at the time. You know what I mean? The cheesiness I didn't really understand that at the time. And now as an adult, that is what I see, but I love it. It's fun. Like it is like, it doesn't take itself seriously. They make fun of themselves. They call themselves out. And it's again, to me, I enjoy it almost more. I'm not going to say more than I did when I was a kid, but I have it on in the background multiple times a week. And I still pick up things that I never really even got before, like, because I'm just listening to it through adult ears now.
I think that's a great way to put it is that, like, not that you enjoy it more now, because as a kid, it's like, you know, it was our lives, but I appreciate it more now, I think I appreciate everything that went into it now more, like I appreciate what it's doing more. As a kid, it's just like your action fix, you know, your cartoon fix, but as an adult, you appreciate like how much more there is to it, that a lot of that gets lost on people, I think, these days. And I know there's a lot of younger people love the 2003 cartoon, which is actually, it is an amazing cartoon, I will say. Like I've been rewatching that on Paramount Plus, and I'm like, oh wow, I forgot how good this cartoon was. It was really good. I think a lot of people's problem, younger people mostly, who they grew up the 2003 show, which it had a lot of comedy, but it was a little more serious than the 87 cartoon. It was more like an adaptation of the Mirage comics made for kids, whereas like the 87 show is very different from the Mirage comics. I think that's the thing that they say that's too goofy, and I never liked that Special Turtles Forever, by the way, because it just craps all over the 87 show. Like, it just makes it out to be like you're watching like a circus act of the whole thing.
What they call them, the short chubby ones or whatever.
Yeah, they're throwing trash cans at Shredder and stuff. So they never acted like that. Like, I don't know, but they made them all Michelangelo, basically. It's like 4 Michelangelos. Yeah, it was like a novelty at the time, but I never liked it. I think that's the thing, though, is like, the thing is that the original Turtles, yes, it is a comedy. It's not serious. But earlier in the show, especially season 1, you know, 5 episodes, that is, even if you want to watch it as like a more comedic, but still serious Saturday morning cartoon, that's the season to watch. Because that one is like a good narrative over the course of 5 episodes. It gets everything started. And it is just a kick-ass cartoon in those 5 episodes. Like, it's really not, it's still a comedy, but it's not as comedic as it got. It's more on the adventure angle, I think, than the comedy.
So my 2 favorite like pieces of Turtles media are the original movie and then that original first season, because it is for those reasons that you said. Like, they came out swinging in that cartoon. Like, there was not really anything made in America that was hitting on the cylinders that cartoon was hitting on at that time. I mean, it really was like, I mean, I would say on par with any anime that was out at the time, as far as just the animation itself, the writing. I mean, it was a little bit more serious. I mean, I'm not going to say it was adult, but I mean, if you watch that first season, like, it definitely has a much, much different tone. It's not goofy at all. Bebop and Rocksteady are menacing. Shredder, I mean, he actually is a good villain. He doesn't just get his mask pulled down over his face and get a wedgie or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, him and Splinter go at it. And like, even just the animation in that intro, like watching Michelangelo's nunchucks move and stuff like that, like I just always I don't know if it would have made the cartoon more successful or less successful if they stayed in that tone. But as an adult, it really just does intrigue me what it would have been like if they would have just kept that more serious tone, kept the higher production, and made less episodes, and weren't just trying to pedal it out as fast as possible. Because I do that first season, it means a lot to me. I had those VHS tapes. I'd watch them over and over and over. And as an adult, I will say that holds up to any of the cartoons whenever anybody else is trying to dog on that show. Like that first season is comparable with anything from 2K3, as the kids call it, anything from the 2012 show. Like it is objectively good. And if there is one thing of that original cartoon that is objectively good, it is those first 5 episodes.
I mean, I agree. I think honestly, I know it's a bit different. It gets season 2. I think season 2 I might like even more than season 1. Season 1 is objectively the best. I think like there's no denying season 1 is the best. Season 2, it's kind of like it's a little more in the style of season 1, but it's setting up how the show is going to more or less play out in the future. Season 2, you know, it starts with like a story, like an ongoing story, the Eye of Sarnath, the little like MacGuffin that comes from the alien in the first episode. You know, it involves like the shrinking turtles and the one where, you know, Shredder puts it in his helmet and Baxter Stockman steals it and all. They had that going on, and that they kind of just dropped that halfway through the season. But there is still continuity going on through the whole season, and like it's all building up to Krang finally being able to bring the Technodrome to Earth, and because you know Bebop and Rocksteady and Krang are like in Dimension X for you know most of the season, and Shredder and Baxter Stockman are in you know Earth. And it's kind of funny. That's like after Stockman becomes the Fly at the end of the season, he's just reduced to like a once a season cameo, but he was like a main villain in that season.
Yeah, Human Baxter was.
Yeah. And it's just there's so many memorable episodes in there. There's like New York's Shiniest with Rex 1. There's the Crooked Ninja Turtle Gang. There's what was the name of the Pizza Monster episode?
Pizza Monsters, yep.
There's so many of them. There's just like these like iconic. They're the ones that when you think of the show, those are like the first episodes that jump into your mind. And
and again, for me, like those are special ones because I had the VHSs. So I mean, I have seen the Pizza Monsters one 10 million times. I have seen the Rex 1 episode 10 million times, and it's weird that in your mind, like you look back and you think like Rex 1 was this huge character in the show. You think Pizza Monsters are these huge characters, but they were only ever in one episode. But those earlier seasons, that's how it is. I don't know why, but they just stand out so much more in my mind, even though they didn't even have any of the iconic Playmates characters in them.
It's funny because when I started watching the show, it was 89. It was like season 3 was going on. But they would show like season 2 and season 1 in reruns. I remember like very shortly after I watched the show, seeing the episode where Bebop and Rocksteady are mutated and stuff. I kind of got into, I didn't see all of them right away. I kind of saw them in bits and pieces over like a year or two. But still, even for me, even though season 3 was what I started with, those first 2 seasons are still just the most iconic to me. I probably saw the most of season 3 as a kid because it was just like, oh, it had so many episodes, 40 episodes, and they were just like constantly in reruns. But they every now and then they'd squeeze in those season 1 and season 2 episodes. So I ended up seeing those. Those season 1 and season 2 ones are just so well done. They just they stand out the most to me still. Like even though they weren't the first episodes I saw. And the only VHS tape I ever owned was Sky Turtles from Burger King.
Yep.
That was the only, I had the movies, but that was the only cartoon episode. I just caught it on TV. I was like the opposite of you. You know, you saw it more on the VHSs. I saw it more on TV. Yeah. I don't know if season 1 and season 2, I think season 2, I just love it. It is more episodic than season 1, but it still has the overarching, like, you know, continuity going on. So I just think it was kind of like the perfect balance of like what the show could have stayed at if they kept the quality going. And season 3 is pretty close. Season 3 is good. It's just with 40 episodes, they're not all going to be, you know, winners. You're going to have some stinkers if you're doing 40 episodes, like these poor animators, like God.
Yeah.
So,
and you see a lot of signs for that. And you could tell they did those 40 episodes, so they could push for syndication. So that way they could play it 5 days a week, all year round.
Yeah.
And it did lead to a lot of those glaring issues that we look back on. There's all those animation issues. Exactly. Turtles missing the top of their head.
Yeah,
Countless times, even
headband
early
changing.
on, the wrong voices coming out of the wrong turtles.
Yeah.
And one of my things that even I noticed as a kid, and I'm really surprised that I did pick up on this, is the voice actors being different on Turtles and Krang in certain episodes. And I feel
Yeah.
like Raphael bugs me more than Donnie. Whenever Rob Paulson isn't doing Raph, I don't know why. Those episodes, like, I almost feel like, are the jokes worse, or does Rob Paulson just somehow deliver bad jokes better than that other voice actor does? Because to me,
Yeah.
I always loved Rob Paulson's terrible jokes, but this other one, I'm just like, get this guy out of here, man. Like, what is he doing?
That's how it was with Shredder. There was like an episode or two where there's no James Avery. And,
Yes.
the guy's not even like trying to mimic James
No.
Avery's voice. If anything, it sounds like he's trying to do like Mr. Miyagi or something. And
Oh
it's
man,
like,
yeah, it's really bad. Like, he is trying to add like a bad Japanese, which again, Shredder is technically a Japanese guy at the end of the day,
Yeah.
but I mean, James Avery wasn't playing it that way. You know what I mean? So,
James Avery had such a good villain voice though. Like a
dude,
villain.
he
who-
might be okay. So, one of my favorite episodes is the one where Shredder thinks or turns into Michelangelo in his
Oh,
head, and it's James Avery doing Shredder doing Michelangelo, and that might
Yeah.
be one of my favorite voice acting jobs of all time, dude. It is
Yeah.
hilarious to listen to him do a surfer voice, but in Shredder's voice coming out of James Avery. Like, I don't know, that's one of my
I love
favorite
that.
episodes, and God,
Yeah.
that guy was just a gem that is definitely missed. R.I.P. James
Definitely.
Avery.
He was probably him and Carlton were the best part of Fresh Prince as it is anyway. Yeah, I think that episode, not only is you can tell he's having so much fun doing that, like playing
yeah.
layered characters like that. There was something, the animation was like better in that episode too. Like every now and then you'd get an episode where the animation was just more fluent. I think specifically when he first shows up and he thinks he's Mike and he's at the sewer and he's like coming in with some pizzas and he's just like, there's a bounce to his step that you don't see in the animation usually and everything. There's just a lot more like frames, it's a lot more fluent. And it's just weird that back in like season 2 and season 3, every now and then you'd get that episode that would just have better animation than the others. And I never quite knew as a kid what that was. Like, I don't know if different animators did different episodes. So some of the animators were just more talented, or if it was like a budget thing. Like they this is going to be a popular episode, put more money into this episode or something. I don't know, but
So that's a talking point that I wanted to bring up too, because it's something I like. I'm assuming they probably were putting it out to multiple studios to get it done as fast as possible, but it is significantly different. And I did notice it as a kid too. It almost looks more like Disney-esque, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
there's more of that
like you said,
squash and stretch kind of going on, like a bit more of
yes,
that
like
bounciness. Yeah.
that Shredder is one of the perfect examples. Like the way he just moves is like, I don't know what it is, but it's totally different. And even the turtles have like their facial expressions are just more animated. Whoever did that
Yeah.
animation is kind of who I wish would have stuck with it, outside of whoever did the first season, because again, the first season I just think is
Yeah.
far and away the best animation. But yeah, that's even as a kid, again, I'm surprised I could pick up on something like that. But and again, I don't know, is it just season 2 or season 3? I can't remember. It seems like it happens very sporadically for a while too.
I feel like, well, season 4, when I go back and rewatch it, I remember the first time like really rewatching it completely in chronological order, because I got a DVD box set back when in like 2007 that was like part of season 3, part of season 4, and I didn't notice it then because I was just watching random episodes. But at some point years later, I was like, let me actually watch the whole show, in order. I didn't make it. I made like season 5, and then but then just watch random episodes. But back then, I was trying to watch them all in order. And I noticed once you go from the last episode of season 3 to the first episode of season 4, not only is the intro like different animation, like they changed the intro, but like just there's a huge drop in animation quality in that time. It's so much choppier, and it's just kind of lazier. Even the animation on the intro isn't as good. I know the first 3 seasons that was done by Toei Animation, the Japanese studio.
That makes sense. I guess I didn't know it was Toei, but that's why that's that anime vibe. That makes sense to me then. Okay.
I don't know if they did the first season. I think they just did the intro, but I'm guessing the people who animated the episodes were told do it like they would do it. Like do it
that
like
makes
the
sense
intro.
then. Okay.
Yeah. So season 4, everything's very stiff. It's very, choppy and jumpy, and there's not as many frames for everything. There's a lot of those like clunky shots where you just kind of the character barely moves, and it's supposed to be an action scene, but like it looks pathetic. Like there's really not much animation. Which, like, I didn't really notice that as much as a kid, but when you watch it as an adult, it definitely makes those later seasons harder to watch because the animation is just not as good. I still love season 4. There's so many good episodes in season 4.
Season 4 has a lot of my favorites, which that's this season. I think when they put out the VHSs, each of the turtles got like their own one where it had the Raphael meets his match and the Leonardo lightens up. Yeah, so those are some of my favorite episodes. Like that's kind of where like it ends for me. I don't think I really had a lot of VHSs past that, and that's kind of where I started falling off a little bit. But yeah, season 4 definitely still has some great episodes, but it is just different, and you can feel it everywhere. Like you can tell like the fighting just completely almost gets eliminated to where it's just like goofy things happening, you know what I mean? I don't think there's any real fight scenes going after that, with the exception of like the Tempestra episode, like that actually with the monsters and stuff like that. That's kind of fun. But I mean, it really is like that's where I think they got all the stuff where they were trying to appease everybody, and it just ended up getting too many changes to where they couldn't really do anything anymore, and it just was almost more just nothing but a slapstick cartoon at that point.
I think that's where you get a lot of the stuff I think Turtles Forever was cracking on, where like rather than Leonardo cutting foot soldiers in half with his katana blades, he kicks a trash can and it trips a bunch of them and they fall over or something, or they put a trash can over him and start beating it or something. Like it's goof. The movies did the same thing. You go from the first movie to the second one and suddenly they're fighting with sausages and stuff, and it's like mops, like Donatello's using a mop or like a sock and bopper or whatever. And it's like,
and again, that would have been about the same exact time, season 4 in the second movie. So that is again when they're like, okay, we shouldn't be fighting with weapons anymore.
Yeah. I think I think the first movie might have affected the cartoon series. I think it might be because there were people who complained that the first movie was too dark, too violent, and like just too focused on fighting and stuff.
Oh, so I bet there was. I guarantee there's a bunch of parents that took their kids to the movies, and I mean, the first words out of Raphael's mouth are "damn," you know what I mean? So it starts off like, all right, this ain't gonna be no cartoon turtles. So
yeah, like can you imagine back then if you went and saw like a Thundercats movie and then the first thing Lion-O says is, "Oh shit," like would you like it's not the same thing, but it's kind of the same thing. Like as a kid, it's like, oh man, like instantly when you hear that, you're like, all right, this isn't like the poster said, this ain't no cartoon. Like
and again, it's one of those things because Turtles is one of the few franchises that blew up, and it wasn't their first like thing that blew them up, you know what I mean? Like again, in the comic world, hardcore comic people knew about the Mirage comics and stuff like that. But I didn't even know about Mirage until I was an adult. Like I mean, I only knew about the Archie comics as a kid, and I remember one day someone's like, "Have you ever read the old Turtles comics?" And I was like, yeah, they're pretty much like the cartoons. Like, no, the ones where they actually use their weapons and kill people. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Even though that's how the Turtles started, it was still so early on when that first movie came out that the new Kitty Turtles hasn't even really been like, I mean, they were established, but the comic had existed much longer than the cartoon at that point.
Yeah, definitely. 84 to 87 is like the cartoon was 87, comics were 84, so they've been around for a while. Yeah, I think because the thing is, parents didn't know about the comics. Kids weren't reading the comics. Teenagers were reading the comics and stuff, and adults are reading them. So I think like now that they knew, okay, this is this thing my kids love, they take them to the movie, and even though you look at it now, it's still like full of slapstick and it's still funny and stuff. They're still cracking jokes, and Mike's doing impressions and everything. But it compared to the cartoon, it's like to parents back then, you're watching the cartoon 1 second and you pop in this movie, and even though it looks like an innocent movie does now, parents back then are like, oh my God, did I just show my kid Jacob's Ladder? Like, what the hell is this? It just seemed like such a stark contrast. So I think the cartoon had to mellow down also, just because there was probably a lot of parents complaining about like, I don't like that, my kids are, into people fighting with katana blades and sais and all these violent weapons. So the Turtles just started, fighting with inanimate objects, and infamously Mikey, he didn't use the nunchucks anymore. He used the grappling hook and all. And
even as a kid, I noticed that too. It's like, why does he never use his nunchucks anymore? Why does he always have this grappling hook? And how is a grappling hook a weapon? Like,
weirdly, I never noticed
why the grappling hook. Like,
I don't know.
Odd choice. And also on that note, why nunchucks out of all the weapons? Why is that the weapon that England or whatever decided that just wasn't okay anymore? I mean, seems like
I
a katana
believe
could do a lot more damage than a set of nunchucks.
a katana could kill someone without even trying. I
Yeah.
think my theories, I believe what I heard. So my theory, not really a theory, but what I believe I heard is, not everyone can just walk down the street with a katana blade. If you do, you're going to jail. So I think nunchucks were a weapon that anyone could make essentially
Okay.
and could just carry around. There was no law against having nunchucks because they're not a lethal weapon on their own. It's just like a stick with, it can be very lethal. But I think the thing is, then there were nunchuck attacks, oddly enough, in the area at the time, or like in recent memory. So they didn't want the show promoting that. So I think that's what it was, rather than like just saying, because no, nunchucks are nowhere near as deadly as like, katana. But I think it's just like they were like, well, there have been nunchuck attacks in recent memory. So we don't want to support nunchucks, but katana blades, yeah, those are fine. We haven't had any katana killing, so yeah, it was definitely weird. I guess we just have to get into the overall drop of quality that just gradually kept getting worse and worse over the course of the show. Not that it got bad, I can still watch the later seasons, but season 4 is the last like really good season of the show. I would say the first 3 seasons are great. The first season is amazing. The 4th season's good. And then everything after that is kind of like, well, if you love Ninja Turtles, you can keep watching. But if you don't bother. Like, it's not, it only appeals to you if you love Ninja Turtles, those later ones, because they're not quite as long as season 3 and 4. Those were humongous.
Yeah.
I hate to say that the writing got more childish because it is a children's show. But I just have to mention, like, I used this example in one of my Turtle Talk videos I did also when talking about Planet of the Turtleoids. It was like this big event they did in season 6, which was the last season I watched. Like, I didn't even watch all of it. I was kind of like, I was losing interest in it then, but that was a big deal. That was like, oh, this big event. I rewatched it as an adult when doing my Turtle Talk videos because that was hard to get a hold of. They didn't put that on any DVDs or anything. So it was later that I watched that episode again. I just remember watching that. And even like when I got older, I watched, the Muckman Joe Eyeball episode and the Mondo Gecko episode, season 5 and season 6 and stuff. Like the writing was just, it was just like, there wasn't any of that funny wit anymore. The jokes weren't like clever anymore. They didn't have jokes that adults could laugh at. They were just like pure cheese. I bet my best example I can give is the character Dirtbag. His lines are, I don't know if it's because of the voice actor or just what, his lines are like, I hate to use the term, but they're cringeworthy kind of, because it's like, he's just reading it off a sheet and it's the most bare bones stuff. They get turned into mutants, the mole and the warthog, the bull, not warthog, and they're introducing themselves and like Shredder's like, well, what do you call these things? And he's like, the moles call me Dirtbag, and it's like he reads it like he's a speaking spell or something. And then later on, like during the action scene, the music's going, he's fighting Raph. He opens up a pipe in the sewer and he just straight up out loud goes, I'm gonna hide in this pipe, and opens it up and crawls in. And it's like, and then like Raph's like beat it, Dirtbag or something. He's like, hey, my name is Dirtbag. And it's just like, it really lets you know just like how much the writing has fallen at that point. It's like they're not even trying to write funny jokes or anything. They're just like, that was the point where they were like, okay, this is just a toy commercial. Just make it, get it out there. The kids will like whatever you give them as long as the turtles are in it. And like, it seemed like it was just like, we got to keep making this kind of thing as opposed to like, we want to make this sort of thing. So,
well, so season 5 would have been what, 92?
91, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would have been, I think, their peak year for toy. I'm pretty sure 91 was their peak year for toy sales. I could be wrong. It's either 91 or 92. And I feel like they just were in that position where they probably just like, we're too big to fail, right now. We can do anything. And it probably just to get to that point where like, we don't have to try. Like, we're running the biggest franchise in the entire world right now. Like, what do we care? Like, we're making money hand over fist. Like, nobody can stop us. Because that's the other thing with Turtles is they had no competitor until Power Rangers really came along.
Yeah, they didn't.
The big three were always kind of competing with each other a little bit. But like I said, there's a reason Turtles, the cartoon just sticks out so much in your mind because it really just was. Even when they weren't great, it was still the best kids cartoon on at the time almost.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a lot of people wanting to be competitors. There was like, Biker Mice from Mars and
Oh yeah. And that's about when all that stuff was probably really starting to pop off too, all the kind of the copycat
all the
franchises.
anthropomorphic heroes, Bucky
Yeah.
O'Hare, which I know was a comic in the 80s, but like they made a show out of it to compete with Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah.
And, even Playmates and Fred Wolf himself, they were even making competitors like Toxic Crusaders and stuff.
Yeah.
Which was also very like self-aware and comedic and stuff. But there was just so many of those like Cowboys of Moo Mesa and Barnyard Commandos and all that stupid crap. And it's like there was just so many of those ripoffs, and none of them even blew up. Even something like, it was definitely its own. It was really cool, but even something like SWAT Cats it probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't.
I forgot about SWAT Cats. That's a deep one. I forgot about that.
I don't think I would have remembered SWAT Cats. My best friend, like he loved SWAT Cats as a kid, so I'll never forget about SWAT Cats. But it wasn't something I grew up with. But yeah, I don't think that would have even existed. Hell, I don't even know if Darkwing Duck would have existed if it wasn't for the success of Ninja Turtles. Like, everyone was just like animal superheroes. It's what we got to do right now.
Oh, so. It was. I mean, it was a game changer. And again, like if you weren't there, you just really can't understand how big it was. And I can't even really think of anything ever that's in my lifetime that's been as dominant. Like I cannot think of one franchise that has just completely dominated all their peers like that since the Turtles.
I can think of one. It's not just a cartoon franchise though. It's funny though because it's one that I've experienced it. I think it's okay, but I've always had a huge disconnect because it's one of the most popular franchises. It's actually the highest grossing multimedia franchise of all time, and I just always thought it was like okay at best. Pokemon.
Pokemon. I get it. I'm a big Pokemon person. So yeah, I get it.
Everyone is. I'm the only person on earth who's not. And even then, I've played Gen 1, I played Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5. I didn't like Gen 5. That got me out of it. I played a bit of Go when it was out and when it was new and stuff. And like, yeah, it's fun. I get the appeal. I get like why people love it, but it's just for me, it was never that big. It was just like, it's okay. It's cute. There's other Nintendo games I like way more than it, like Mario and Zelda and stuff. But that I think Pokemon, like late '90s, early 2000s, Pokemon ruled the world.
Yeah,
and I think that's the only thing comparable, probably.
Yep, I'll give you that one. That definitely. Yep, I'll agree with that. I can't think of anything that was really when Pokemon was out. I mean, yeah, video games, cards. It was that multimedia franchise that was everything.
Because like I know like SpongeBob is one of the biggest cartoons ever, and that was like early 2000s. It blew up, but it wasn't like it's a bigger cartoon than Turtles was, but it doesn't have all the multimedia outlets that Turtles did. Like the movies and the toys are nowhere near as big as the actual cartoon show is for SpongeBob.
So the thing with that is when the original creator was alive, he didn't want any merchandising like that. He wanted it to just be the cartoon, like what's that comic strip?
Calvin and Hobbes.
Yes, it's essentially like that. He didn't want it to be over merchandised, and that was originally what he wanted. So that's why again SpongeBob was still huge, but it could have been even bigger because again toys are what moves. So.
They made a movie. They made multiple movies now, but I know they made that first movie. And they made and it wasn't that well received. I think the show was always much more popular than the movie was. And they made like video games and kids liked them, but you didn't hear about those as much as you heard about the show SpongeBob. Yeah. Whereas Ninja Turtles, like the toys, the video games, the movies, the cartoon show, they were all equally humongous. Like they were all super popular. Like, I mean, Turtles, the arcade game, and Turtles in Time are like two of the most popular arcade games from that era. And it's
I mean, they're definitely two of my favorite beat 'em ups of all time.
Yeah. And Turtles was just a juggernaut. Like even food, there was freaking turtle pies,
everything,
and all that.
Everything. Like, I mean, literally, and that's what I'm saying. If you weren't there, you just can't understand. You went anywhere and something would have a Turtles brand on it. Food, toilet paper, everything. You remember the stupid camera where you took a picture and it had a little turtle freaking what am I trying to say? Watermark in the corner, like everything. Like they were just everywhere.
It was everything.
And again, it was the perfect storm of the toy line and the cartoon just both working together.
Yeah.
I mean, And again, I never know which is more important, which is bigger, which got me into it. It's hard to say if it's the cartoon or the toy line, or if it's them working together in harmony.
Yeah, I think it's both of them together. For me, the toy line was bigger, but that's not to say like I probably wouldn't have stayed into the toy line as long as I did if not for the cartoon. So like they needed both. It was like a symbiotic relationship. Like
Yeah.
you needed both of them. And I just think because that cartoon was so big, that's why we got all that merchandise. Like I remember like I had like Ninja Turtle, like there was like Ninja Turtle toothpaste. I had Ninja Turtle like underwear when I was a little like
Yep.
Leonardo underwear. I had like, just everything. It was like tic-tac-toe Ninja Turtles, but every board game was remade as Ninja Turtles.
Everything.
Puzzles, lunch boxes, sleeping bags, like pillowcases, stuffed animals, everything was like turtles. Like you went anywhere. I remember you just go to like the doctor's office and they'd have like, a
Right.
stuffed Raphael on the shelf or something. And like I remember even watching stuff, now Nickelodeon owns Turtles, but back in the day, Double Dare, they used to have the show on Nickelodeon, Double Dare, the game show. I saw a rerun of it years ago. And they show the audience, and for no reason at all, the audience is cheering right in the front of the audience. They just have a big stuffed Raphael there, and it's like nothing to do with the program. Like they're just Ninja Turtles was just a part of every kid's life then. So it's like you want to appeal to kids, throw some Ninja Turtles in there. So yeah, this cartoon was such a big deal, and that's something I want to say. Touching on Pokemon, here's a little bit of salt. We're a little salty here. So a lot of younger nerds, being a nerd online, you talk to like people of all different ages and stuff. And even in person, now we're in our 30s, our mid 30s. Now, like most nerds we meet are going to be a little younger than we are. And talking to some of them, a lot of them will say that they'll disregard Ninja Turtles. Like, oh, the original one was it was a toy commercial. They were just advertising toys. And I always think like, you little bastard, you like Pokemon, and Pokemon is the biggest commercial of all time. Like, every episode of that anime is just like, we got to catch a Gyarados today. Everyone in the world loves Gyarados now. And like, everyone's trying to catch a Gyarados. Who's that Pokemon? Go get his card, go get the new game so you can catch him. Buy the game 3 freaking times so you can trade the characters between each game. And it's like, I'm not disrespecting Pokemon, but it's like, it's a scam, man. It's a money making scheme. It's a damn good one. They figured it out. Good. Oh, yeah. But yeah, like I mean, like everything to a certain degree, every multimedia franchise is a commercial to a certain degree.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, and to be fair, the Turtles, most episodes weren't advertising a toy actually. Like even season 3, everyone remembers season 3 as like that's the one that had like Leatherhead and the Rat King and stuff. But most episodes were just the Turtles versus some random mobsters or like Bebop and Rocksteady again or something. And they might pull out like the Retro Mutation Catapult in an episode for a scene or something. But like most episodes weren't advertising anything actually.
And that's when I go back and rewatch it and watch all these. I don't really want to call them filler episodes, but like half the episodes of the show are just some alien showing up and causing problems. That's like literally half the episodes. There's so many random aliens that show up that they never made a toy of. Like I think there's like, I can't remember if it's 3 or 4, season 3 or 4, but there's like 3 episodes in a row where it's just 3 different aliens coming to town causing different problems.
Yeah, they loved their aliens, just like crazy stuff. I mean,
so many.
Think of all the episodes where like they get to the center of the earth and discover dinosaurs, or a giant like King Kong ape is attacking the city and stuff. Like there's so much weird stuff happening that's like they didn't make toys of all that crap. They didn't make a toy of the Diplodocus that the turtles rode on or anything. Like I guess they made dinosaurs eventually, but
And that's why like when we say like NECA is running out of ideas, there's like I said, there's a lot of really, really deep cuts to this show if you want to think about it. But again, they're like such deep cuts that they don't really like, you don't even remember them. Like I don't remember even like the Pee Wee Herman alien. I can't think of his name right off the top of my head.
I remember him.
There's the chubby ones that show up that have 6 arms, and I think Donatello and Rocksteady are in a solo episode in that episode. Or like.
There's the one where they get stranded together. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And again, like it's weird because you don't remember these aliens, but again, you look at Rex 1, he was only in 1 episode. You look at the Pizza Monsters, they were only in 1 episode. Why did they stand out so much when these random aliens don't? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Big Mac, the robot, they're making him also NECA. And like he was, just a one and done. There was just so many weird characters. There was like the Freddy Krueger guy. you remember him? There was an episode with like Freddy. He had like a snake body. He was like a genie or something, but he was like Freddy Krueger on the top. Just so many crazy characters that they made. Like
There's not a lot that I can't think of right off the top of my head, but I must not be paying attention when that one comes on.
Most of them were not promoting like merchandise though. Most of them were just like random stories, like just weird stuff. And yeah, I don't know. It just gets this reputation that like it was all for toys. It's like, dude, between season 3 and season 4 alone, you had 81 episodes. You can't make 81 commercials. I'm sorry. Like they weren't all commercials. And yeah, I don't know. I think like even then, I have to say, when I was a little kid, I was aware that, you know, they were cross promoting the toys and the cartoon, and I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. I was like, I actually did. Most people saw the cartoon first and then wanted the characters' toys they saw in the cartoon. I was the opposite. I'd see a new wave of toys was out. I'd want to get the whole wave. I'd get super into those characters, and then I'd be hyped to see them show up in the cartoon. And
I think that's kind of how it is more so for me too. Again, I'm never really sure which one I look more fondly back on. I definitely leaned more towards the toys, but that's how it was for me too. It seemed like to me the toys were kind of canon. That's who I wanted to appear in the cartoon, because Mondo Gecko just seemed like a huge character to me, and I think he was only in like 2 episodes, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
everybody had his toy. Everybody had that toy. Like, so he just stands out to me so much that he just seems like such a big character to me.
Yeah, he does to everyone. I think Mondo Gecko, everyone remembers him as being like one of the main allies of the Turtles, but it's like, I mean, he was bigger in the Archie comics, but it's just crazy that like he was in, he was in 2 episodes of the cartoon, but most of us only saw the one. Like the one where he was,
the one came in later season, I'm pretty sure.
Way later, like season 7, when they were just like, you know, let's bring back every character anyone ever loved because nobody's watching.
It might be the Turtleoids episode that he comes back in. Even maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember.
I think it's the Dirk Savage one, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay, that's what it is. I know it's one that has a lot of other characters in it, but
they had like, you know, they threw in Toka and Razar in that one and stuff. And then that season they had Night of the Rogues, where they brought in like, here's every villain ever with the wrong voice actor. And you know, if you're bringing back Tempestra, you're desperate. So,
hey, hold on. For the record, that's one of my favorite episodes, and we'll get into that here in a minute.
Tempestra's awesome, but I just mean like she wasn't selling a toy or anything. Like, most kids probably didn't even remember her by that point in the show, because like she was a one and done character. She didn't get toys, she didn't get comics. So it's like, she's cool, and it's awesome to see her in Shredder's Revenge. I can't believe they brought it back for Shredder's Revenge.
One of my favorite surprises for sure.
Yeah. And but it's just crazy they brought her back. And like I've said before, it's like Scumbug is like, April acts like she knows Scumbug already in that episode. She's like, oh, I know who this is, he's no good and everything. It's like, no, we never met. We have the toy, we all own the toy, but no one's ever seen him in the show. I don't know if it was a canceled episode that was supposed to happen in like season 3 or something, or probably season 4. But yeah, they just act like we all knew who he was. They were just putting in any character they could at that point in season 7, because they're like, we're not really making characters in the toy line anyone cares about anymore. Like, you're not going to get an episode with Hotspot and Scratch. So It's like, they just kind of started putting in like, oh, just throw in any character you can. And like before they did the Red Sky seasons, you know, they were gonna continue the show, and they were gonna bring back Mona Lisa for an episode and stuff. And they just decided, you know, the 3rd movie bombed, and like everything was kind of bombing, and I think they were just like, we got to change this. We like this, what we're doing isn't working, so we had to reinvent the cartoon, and now we have the Red Sky season.
So talking about the Red Sky season, so we kind of talked about this a little bit before we started recording. Like you, when I first saw the Red Sky seasons, I thought it was a completely new show. I kind of fell off somewhere around season 5. So I didn't really know the Turtles had ended. I just kind of assumed it did, because if I stopped paying attention to something, it probably stops being real or something like that. But when I saw those Red Sky episodes for the first time, like, it just looked so different to me. I definitely thought it was a new show. I was just so like, again, it's not like I just like, oh, the Turtles are stupid. I was just into other stuff at the time. So it just never really caught on with me. I saw a couple episodes, and I just passed right along pretty much.
I didn't even know about it until like, I think like, I was out of high school. Like, it's when I was starting to get back into Turtles around like 2006, 2007, I started buying back the action figures. Because back then you could put anything on YouTube, you know, like people would just upload whole episodes of cartoons and stuff. And YouTube was great back then. It was like a Wild West.
Wild West, right?
And I remember there was people who would like dub over the cartoon with stupid stuff. And there was people who just put up the cartoon. And I saw an episode with the guy Carter. You know, it was like the Kino, but not Kino, kind of throwaway character. And I was watching, like, what the hell is this? Their eyes look different, you know, like the sky's red, and like everyone's like everything's very like blocky and like sharp and like it's much more serious in tone. There's no Shredder. It's just like generic aliens. I know Lord Dreg was like the main villain, but like they're mostly just like these generic, like I said, like, they're like Silverhawks, like rejects. Like they didn't make it a Silverhawk villain, so they ended up in Turtles. And it's like I had no idea what it was. Again, like you, I was like, was this a different show? Was there a show in between 87 and 2003? Because it artistically it looks a bit more like 2003 with the sharpness, but it's still the voice actors and stuff from the 87 show and all. So the world of the 87 show. But I had no idea that existed as a kid. As a kid, I just stopped during season 6. I just fell out because they weren't putting the characters from the toy line in the show anymore. And the third movie was ass. And my older brother's friends in school were saying Turtles wasn't cool anymore. So like we had to get out of it. And but then I grew up and found out, like, what was this? And I'm like, oh, this show went on like 10 seasons. I didn't know, and well on beyond what I was watching. And I didn't know that. So
yeah, and again, that was a big surprise to me because I thought it was a new show. I didn't realize that was a continuation of the same show. And when I found out the original box set was 10 seasons long, it just blew my mind because I never really paid attention to anything past season 5. It clearly was still running somewhere. And I mean, I don't even really remember seeing the toys on the shelf. It's like it kept going, but I feel like once I stopped paying attention to it and got into X-Men, which was kind of my next phase, like it disappeared for me. It's not like I ever just was like, I hated Turtles. It just kind of faded away.
For me, there was kind of this push because, you know, my older brother, I had to like what he liked, and his friends were saying it was like lame little kid stuff now. So now like I couldn't like it anymore. So there was a bit of like I have to act like it's not cool anymore kind of thing. But I was genuinely kind of just losing interest in it anyway. So it wasn't that hard to do that. But then, you know, several years later, I'm like, oh my God, why did I turn my back on Ninja Turtles? I need to get back into Ninja Turtle. But just the fact that, you know, nobody was really watching it anymore, but they still made like season 6 is probably the last season most kids watched, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And they made it up to 10. It's like they made like 4 or 5 more seasons than most kids saw. It's just a testament to how big the show was, how successful the show was, and the impact it had. Like, I mean, even if you don't like it, you're allowed to not like it. I think you should still respect it in that we wouldn't have a 2003 cartoon. We wouldn't have a 2012 cartoon. We wouldn't have an IDW comic series or any of this. I wouldn't have NECA toy lines if the 87 show wasn't the massive success that it was, and it made Ninja Turtles a household name and gave the franchise like infinite life. Because the Mirage comics, they're great, but they were a niche thing. Like if that was all it was, it would have gone the way of Bucky O'Hare and stuff like that. Like it would have just been this flash in the pan. A few guys liked it and then it just disappeared kind of thing. So the 87 cartoon really is all to thank for the legacy of like the franchise, and the fact that they've been able to make it the stuff like Rise and stuff is really still all owed to the fact that 87 cartoon and the 88 toy line were as big as they were.
One of those things where Turtles hasn't always been there, but comparing it to all the franchises of the 80s, it's definitely been the most consistent, I would say, going forward. Like you said, Pokemon has pretty much been huge ever since it came out. And Michael Bay, the movies definitely kind of blew the Transformers back up. And again, that kind of did wonders for that franchise. But other than that, I mean, the Turtles have stood the test of time, I would say, almost better than any other brand other than Transformers, maybe. And like you said, it's on the weight of that original cartoon. If that original cartoon wouldn't have took off, none of the kids wouldn't have wanted to buy the toys. And if those two things wouldn't have happened, that first movie never would have got made. And it just would have stayed pretty much that indie hit that had maybe a little bit of success here, but it just, it wouldn't have been this, what are we going on, 35-year franchise now? Longer, including the Mirage comics?
Yeah, it's a huge deal. And it in that sense, it had a bigger impact than any other cartoon of its time. Like, He-Man is amazing. It's like it's still going. It's crazy that there's been consistent toy lines and stuff, but like there's been like until this past year, there was only 2 cartoons, and the 2000X one, it was good, but no one really cared about it at the time when it came out. And they haven't done a movie since the Dolph Lundgren one. It has its fan base, but it's more niche. Even though like it gets its own con, like Power Con and all, I do feel like there's a more niche audience for He-Man. It's widely remembered, but the people who are really into it are like more niche. Whereas Turtles, it doesn't quite have, its niche audience isn't quite that strong. Like its cult audience isn't that strong, but it's more widely just beloved the world over, I think.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just consistent. There's people who love the 2003 Turtles, people who love the 2012 Turtles, people who love the movie Turtles. It's like everyone has their own version of the Turtles. Whereas if you like He-Man, it's like, oh, are you 82 or what is it, 81 or 82? 82 or 2003? Like, which one are you? Like, that's basically it.
Yeah.
So
and again, I think that's the best part about this franchise too, is I don't really have a true definitive version of the Turtles. I always say the original cartoon and the original movie are my two favorites. But again, even picking between those two, if I had to choose one forever, it would be a really hard decision for me.
Yeah.
And
that'd be really tough.
That's why when people get so butthurt about like the new iterations not being exactly what they wanted, at this point, we have so much Turtles content that, I mean, I still haven't watched all the 2003 cartoon. I still haven't watched all the 2012 cartoon. I haven't watched any of Rise. Like, there is so much content that it's one of those things where if I don't have something that I like in the moment, I just pass, and it doesn't really bother me because there already is so much to love about this franchise. And I don't think you have to love everything to be considered a true Turtles fan or a true hardcore Turtle fan. I think you can take what you like and forget the rest.
Yeah. Like I said, if one of those things you don't like is the 87 cartoon, that's totally fine. And no, it's not for everyone, especially in this day and age. I just think it deserves
respect it.
At least. Yeah, you gotta respect it. It's like you wouldn't have, like, even if like, say you love Disney animated movies, say you love like Aladdin or whatever, but you hate the old Mickey Mouse cartoons. You still gotta respect the Mickey Mouse cartoons because you wouldn't have your damn Aladdin if it wasn't for Mickey Mouse. So it's like you don't have to love it, but you have to respect it. Yeah. And we're definitely going to come back to this topic because we could talk about this.
We still have a lot more to say. And again, I was worried we couldn't fill an hour. I think even with editing, this is going to go a lot longer than that. So
yeah, and we still want to rank our favorite episodes and stuff. So we're definitely not done with the 87 cartoon, but I think we're going to wrap this up for today. Put a cap on the first episode of the Party Wagon podcast.
Definitely started a little bit rough, but found my way along things, and just something else that I'm just going to have to, I don't know, just with time get a little bit better at. But yeah, this was a blast, man. I had so much fun doing this. I've just wanted to do this for so long, and I just can't thank you enough for doing this with me, man. Like, it really does mean a lot. I know how much time this is taking out of this night alone right now. I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on, and I have people that I can talk to about Turtles that are interested, but nothing like this where someone is just willing to sit down and spend hours talking to me about Turtles. So I'm very excited to see where this goes, man. I'm like, I had a great time. I can't wait to do this again. Thanks for doing this with me, man.
Oh yeah, thanks so much, man. I had so much fun to do. I don't really get to talk to people about Turtles like this normally, so it's like that's one of the reasons I made the YouTube channel, is because no one wants to listen to me normally.
Yeah, exactly.
So and then I mean,
like us, so
you say you were awkward at the beginning. It's like, no, you were pretty good. We're gonna look back in like 30 episodes and we're both gonna be like, oh my god, we were so bad in that first episode.
That's what I hope for. Exactly. That's all I want, man. Improvement. That's all I can ask for. Same with my YouTube channel. It started rough. It's just a little bit better now. It's not great, but as long as you're getting better, that's all that matters. All right, man.
All right.
Anything else?
Well, that's a wrap. I think that's everything.
Cool. Take it easy. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yep.
Right. Peace.
Peace.